Now, I'm not here to tell you that I am better than you or I am always right and you are always wrong. No, what I am here to tell you is that these are the 5 most common M.B.B.S study mistakes that students make, and then 2 years later they realize, oh, my life would have been much easier only if I had watched Arham's video. What's cooking, sapiens? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Arham and I'm a 5th year medical student at the University of Oslo in Norway. So study mistake number 1 that M.B.B.S students make is being note junkies. Whether or not note taking is bad, I think is one of those topics where students will either love you for this or they will literally hate you. And in my personal opinion, I believe that it all depends on the kind of notes that you are taking, because there are certain forms of note taking which are very passive and then some are very active forms of note taking. Now let's have a short look at one of the most passive and one of the most common forms of note taking, aka summarizing. So let's say I have this massive textbook of pharmacology right here, like the Dales, the Bible of pharmacology. So let's say I'm studying about ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, and how they affect the glomerular filtration in the kidneys. Now what normally students would do is that they would open up the chapter, right, and read the paragraph, and while they are reading the paragraph they're also noting in their head what's important, and then they're noting down those important details either in their notebook or on their iPad or on their laptop, like by typing them out. And numerous studies have shown how this is not the most optimal form of note taking or learning, because you are basically passively reading from a certain textbook and then writing down the important details. You are not actively retrieving information from your brain or trying to do active recall, and hence it's not very optimal because it won't store that information in your long-term memory. And on the other hand, you have these other methods which can involve active learning, right? So you have this book, for example, where I read about ACE inhibitors and how they affect your glomerular filtration. So what I do is that I read the chapter or the paragraph in my book, and then I close the book, I put the book on the side on the table, and without looking at the book, after taking a 5 to 10 minute break to allow my brain to forget what I have learned, I sit down and let's say try to make a mind map of the information that I just consumed, and then I look at the book and try to fill in the gaps about the information which I could not remember by retrieving it actively. Now this is a good form of taking notes, but generally speaking I'm not really a huge fan of note taking, and I have 2 main reasons for that. First of all, why do this when you have other forms of learning which consume far less time and also give you a much better outcome in half the time? So why stick to note taking? I think it's a very conventional method and we need to move on from that. That's number 1. The second reason being that let's say you have seniors who have already done those or taken those summaries for you, then why bother jotting down everything again by yourself when your seniors have done that work for you? Or even on the internet, right, you can find multiple summaries of the exact chapter that you are looking for. So why do that work all over again? So let's say you go to a showroom to buy a car, right, and then you pick a car which you like. It has a very nice interior, it looks nice, the drive is nice, the horsepower, everything is quite good, so you are very happy with this car and you want to buy it. You will just simply buy the car. You will not tell the dealer to make a different car for you based on your exact own needs, right? You won't tell them to manufacture a whole new car just because you want that to suit your exact needs. No, you will just buy a car which you basically like, right? So on the internet, you will find multiple summaries which you already use. Why try to make summaries of your own which consume double the time and which will also, make your studying much less efficient when you already have so much work available done by others? It just makes sense to me. The second study mistake that most M.B.B.S students would make is that they take attending lectures as an obligation. Now, I don't know how it works in Asian countries like India and Pakistan. However, in most European countries, including Norway, lectures are not mandatory. They are not obligatory. It's completely optional to attend most lectures. Let's try and understand this idea. What exactly is a lecture? A lecture is basically a 45-minute one-way conversation. So you have this one person, one teacher, one professor who's basically talking to you non-stop, giving you tons of information, bombarding you with information for 45 minutes non-stop, given the fact that the human attention span at its best, the maximum attention span, is around 20 to 25 minutes. But for a student like me, the maximum attention span would be around 15 minutes. Now what happens after those 15 minutes? I get distracted and then I'm on my phone basically scrolling through Instagram or TikToks. And by the time I put my phone back and try to focus again on the lecture after 5-10 minutes, I'm already too far behind now. and the lecturer has now moved on and I've lost track of all the information. And then you have this one category of students who basically sit in the lecture and transcribe or write down every single word that comes out of the mouth of your teacher. Now be sincere and honest with yourself. How many times have you attended a full day of lectures from 8 in the morning till 12 p.m. and then went back home and then you were like, okay, now I know and remember everything we had today in the lectures? For me, it's zero. Literally, I have to sit down and restudy everything that we went through the exact same day in the morning. The only possible benefit that you can get from lectures is the fact that you get to know what's important and relevant for the exam, because whatever the professor says is going to be important, obviously. But for that reason, you have the PDFs, you have the lecture PowerPoints available for every student, right? So you can go through these lectures and see what the professor went through. That's it. Trust me, this is coming from a guy who used to attend lectures religiously for the first 2 years of medical school. The next mistake is extremism. Now, I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm talking about extremism when it comes to studying, because you have this one group of students who study way too much, like way too much, over studying, and then you have this other group of students who don't study at all and basically cram right before your exams by having all-nighters, drinking caffeine, taking caffeine shots, pills, or whatever it takes. Nobody talks about those students who study way too much and are indulged in overstudying. So let's go over some signs that you are overstudying. Sign number one is that you are compromising on your sleep. Now, even though we are medical students, we still tend to really underestimate the power of good sleep, even though we know how important of a biological function that really is. A study from Harvard University, the division of sleep, linked sleep with memory function, mood, motivation, judgment, and perception. Now, this leads to you falling in a very dangerous, vicious cycle, because let's say you are overstudying. Now you are compromising on your sleep. And what happens when you compromise on your sleep? Well, you wake up the next day and you're tired, you're fatigued, you're not really focused. So your focus and your concentration is compromised for the next study session. And now you think, okay, what's wrong with me? I can't really study properly, I'm not really studying optimally, so I need to study even more. So you overstudy even more, and what does that lead to? Well, even less sleep. Again, you study even more and get even less sleep. It leads to this unstoppable vicious cycle, which is like very hard to get out from. Then what is the perfect balance? Where do you draw the line between studying and overstudying? Now, for me as a 5th-year medical student, now having experience from the past 4.5 years, I have realized that the most optimal way or duration of studying for me every single day is from 90 minutes to 120 minutes per day. This way I'm able to juggle my life perfectly, because I don't have to cram before my exams, nor do I have to study 5 to 6 hours every single day as I used to do previously. The next mistake M.B.B.S students make is not having enough colloquiums. Now, group studying is one of the most underrated things in medical school, given that you actually study and not just have banter 80% of the time. This has two benefits. First of all, you are utilizing the Feynman technique, which means that you are explaining to other people what you already know, and this leads to two things. First of all, you are solidifying what you already know, the information that you already know, by explaining that to others. And secondly, you're also identifying gaps or holes, loopholes in the information that you thought you knew, but you actually did not know that well. Because when we are studying alone, we tend to sort of overestimate how much we actually know. But when you have to explain that material to other students, and then they ask you questions and make you explain that even better, that's when you realize that, oh man, I thought I knew this, but I actually don't, so you get really a good reality check on what you know and what you don't know. The second benefit is that you are actually simulating an exam situation like OSCE or a Viva, because one of you then can be an examinator and test others or quiz the other students. And this has a huge, massive mental impact, because when the exam comes, you have far less anxiety because you have actually simulated the exact same situation in your group study sessions. I performed the best on the exams where I had tons and tons of colloquiums or group study sessions. For example, in anatomy in my second year, I actually got an A and also got a job as an assistant teacher in anatomy at the medical faculty at the University of Oslo, and that was because I was having tons and tons of these group study sessions. So like me and my friend, we would go down to like the dissection hall and we would like take up a body and just start quizzing each other. So let's say one time I would be the examinator, and then I would tell him, okay, tell me, or start talking about the anatomy of the arm, explain to me, show what's going on, and then they have to talk, and then you can also at the same time quiz them, right? And then the other day he would be the examinator and he would like pick a random body part and just give that to me. that way I was so prepared for my anatomy exam, because that's the exact way we have our anatomy exam in Norway. So like you get a body part, a completely random body part, which you have to then explain and talk about for like the next 30 minutes. So this way, when the exam came, I had like zero to no anxiety. I was completely prepared and I was ready to smash that thing. The fifth and final mistake is not doing enough past paper questions, not solving enough clinical problems which have come in your previous exams. And that's because traditionally students learn and prepare for their exams by reading through textbooks and memorizing all that course material, right? And then they use exam past papers like a couple of weeks before their exams to really test how much they know, how much their knowledge really is, and if they are prepared for their exams or not. I think that's a bit problematic, because doing past paper questions can actually be a really effective way of actually teaching you stuff and learning the course material, right? Because if you just sort of approach past paper questions as a way of testing yourself and see if you are prepared, then what might happen is that if you get too many questions wrong, like more than you actually expected, then that might lead to your confidence completely shattered, right? So you are like, oh my god, I thought I was prepared, but I'm actually not. What the heck is gonna happen in 1 week's time when I have my exam, because I got so many questions wrong? And then doing all these past paper questions also makes you familiar with the kind of questions you get on an exam, right? Because obviously they won't be making completely new questions on every single exam, like from scratch. A lot of questions actually do get repeated, maybe like with a few different details, but a lot of that stuff, or the way these questions are formulated, is actually quite similar. So you also get to know what exactly is relevant and the most important material for your exams. If you see something, being tested 3 times every year, then you know that this question is very important. I need to know this in and out. So yeah, it really sort of gives you this tunnel vision of what exactly is important, what you need to know, and how to discard all that other unnecessary information that we are bombarded with in medical school. That's a wrap for today's Sapiens. Now, if you found this video useful, then please kiss that subscribe button, because that really helps me a lot and motivates me to keep churning out these videos. In the meantime, you can watch this video, which will surely add some value to your life as well, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Take care. Peace.